Hey, welcome to the Unshakable Edge, the podcast for those who refuse to settle. I'm your host, Joe Warren, and if you're ready to master discipline, strengthen your mindset, and gain the edge in every area of your life, this is your home. Each episode delivers powerful insights on resilience, growth, and success, helping you take control of your life, take action, and build an unshakable life. Let's dive into this week's episode and sharpen your edge today. I want to ask you a question. When was the last time that the fear of failing made you hesitate, stall, or completely quit before you even started? We dress it up with lines like, I'm just being careful, or I need maybe more time to prepare. I don't really want to attempt that because I haven't really, so I'm not familiar with it. But often it's fear in disguise. Picture this. You're in middle school and your school is hosting a track and field day. And somehow you get signed up for the 100-meter race. The gun fires, the crowd's going wild, and you take off like your life depended on it. The problem, you sprinted the first lap like it was the 100 meters. And by the time you hit the end of that first lap, your lungs are burning, your legs are feeling like concrete. You feel like you've been running in quicksand. By the second lap, you are gasping for air. And then you notice, one by one, people all of a sudden are beginning to pass you. First, it's the really fast kids. Then all of a sudden, the average kids are going by. And then the kids who look like they've never run a day in their lives, all of a sudden are crossing and passing you by. And halfway through that second lap, you stop. You don't slow down to a jog. You're not even thinking about walking across the finish line. You just step off the track. And in your mind, you're telling yourself, man, this is so embarrassing. I've failed. If I keep going, everyone's just going to see this struggle that I'm in. I might as well just quit this. What you didn't realize then is that quitting in that moment actually burns the embarrassment deeper into your memory more than if you had just finished dead last. In contrast, let me tell you about another race. It's the year 1968. It's the Mexico City Olympics. And there is a marathon runner by the name of John there from Tanzania running in this race. And during the race, John gets bumped by another runner and he falls to the ground. Not only does that slow his race down, but now he has injuries, and one of them is a really bad injury to his leg. This happens with about 19 miles of the race to go. But he didn't quit. He limped, he hobbled, he grimaced in pain for the next 19 miles. By the time he entered the stadium at the finish line, the race had ended an hour earlier. The crowd is mostly gone, but he finishes. Now, when a reporter asked him why he didn't quit, he said this: my country didn't send me 5,000 miles to start a race. They sent me 5,000 miles to finish it. The difference between the middle school race and John's marathon, we feared failure so much that we stepped off the track. John feared not finishing more than the pain of failing. And that's the lie that we can buy into in this excuse, what if I fail? That failure is fatal and that it's got to be avoided at all costs. But the truth is really this: failure is the tuition that we pay for the privilege of standing at our own graduation day. I mean, failure is part of the success process. There is no way around it. I think Michael Jordan, which in my opinion, the all-time greatest basketball player to ever play the game, he said it best in his famous quote that probably many of us have heard or at least seen the commercial. Well, Jordan says this: I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. Jordan did not fear the misses. Jordan did not fear the losses. He just kept shooting because he understood something that many people never grasp. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the pathway to it. John Maxwell calls this failing forward. And he's got this idea that I think is so true. Failure isn't a wall, it's a doorway. And the only difference between people who succeed and those who don't is that those that are successful, they walk through the doorway instead of turning back. Again, failure is the tuition we must pay. Success is graduation. Every stumble, every botched attempt, every that didn't work moment, it's a class you had to take to get to the next level. And you can't skip class and still expect to graduate. And so maybe this will shed some light on why failure feels so scary. Neuroscience shows that failure triggers the same brain regions associated with physical pain. Aha! That's why we fear this so much. That it can be associated just like with physical pain. That's why when we're going out there and getting after something, failure feels dangerous. And your brain is wired to avoid dangerous situations. Now, the breakthrough is this that the brain has what they call neuroplasticity. The more you face and reframe failure, the less it triggers fear and the more it actually fuels growth. Angela Duckworth, the author of the book Grit, put it this way: enthusiasm is common, endurance is rare. The ones who endure to learn to normalize failure as just part of the grind, those are the ones that succeed. Those are the ones that walk through the doorway. Those are the ones that, even though it looks like they have failed, it actually propels them forward towards the success path. Now, you might be saying, what does all of this failure stuff have to do with dreams? I just want to dream. Well, until you go after your dream, you won't fail. Like, you've got to go after your dream, and failure is going to be part of it. And so just expect failure. Think about it for a minute. What if we just went into it expecting failure, and then failure is not an end all, it's not fatal, it's just feedback to us, it's just data that we've collected that, all right, it didn't work the way I thought it would. This didn't work here. Maybe I'll tweak that. Maybe we could move with this, or let's just try something completely different. So failure is not fatal. It's really feedback, letting us know what is working, what is not working, so that we can continue to move forward in our dream rather than bringing up the excuse, what if I fail? So, in light of failure really just being feedback, let's use a framework. Let's reframe failure as feedback. I want to give you 4 ways to frame it, and then we're going to kind of dive into each one. Number 1 is this: name it for what it is. It's not disaster, it's not a death sentence, it's not fatal, it's just data. That's it. Number 2 is this: extract the lesson. What specifically didn't work and why? Number 3, apply and adjust. Let the lesson reshape your next move immediately. And then the 4th one is keep shooting. The only failure that's final is the one you stop trying after. We want to take this framework and use failure as feedback. So, number one, name it for what it is. It's just data. Most people call failure proof they weren't good enough, but it's really just, listen, it's just information. We've got to shift our language instead of saying I failed to probably I got feedback. Science backs this up. Reframing failure lowers the emotional sting and helps your brain process the event in a logical way instead of emotionally. An example would be a pilot uses an incident report to learn from his mistakes. They don't label them career ending disasters. And so, a question for us to ask ourselves is, what exactly happened? What did I expect to happen? Just use it as information, use it as data so that you can learn and improve upon that. Number two, extract the lesson. In other words, we want to get into the nitty gritty. What specifically didn't work and why did it not work? Failure becomes wasteful only if you never figure out why it happened. So be specific. Don't settle for, well, I just wasn't good enough to do that. No, dig into the decisions, the steps, or the assumptions that actually led to that result. I love how John Maxwell puts this. He calls it evaluated experience, the kind that actually produces growth. An example would be this. We've all probably know Thomas Edison didn't just try random things for the light bulb. He kept notes on why each attempt didn't work so that he never repeated the same mistake twice. That's why he could say, remember, oh man, I see you failed 1,000 times or 10,000 times or whatever it was. And he said, no, I've just figured out that many ways a light bulb will not work. So we've got to ask, what can this teach me that success never could? What specifically didn't work and why? Now, after those two things, then we must apply and adjust. In other words, we've got to take the lesson that we've just learned and we've got to reshape that for our next move. It's not enough just to know what went wrong. You have to change what you do next. Why most people get stuck is they analyze their mistakes but keep repeating them because they never alter their process. Small adjustments compound over time. This is that iterative improvement principle where we're looking at things, checking it out, evaluating, figuring out what went wrong, what went good, and then tweaking, doing something different so that we improve upon what we're trying to accomplish. Coming back to Michael Jordan, he didn't just practice more after he missed shots. He would study game film, he broke down the mechanics. He would even go so far as to, did he eat the right thing that day? Eating the right things would help him to propel him to be better in the game. So I think the question in number 3 here to ask ourselves is, what is the one thing I will do differently because of this failure? Then we get to step number 4, and that is, you got to keep shooting. The only failure that's final is the one that you stop trying after the failure. This is where that grit really comes into play. Endurance beats talent over the long run. I've already referenced her once before, but the psychology insight that Angela Duckworth's research gives us on grit shows that persistence through setbacks is a stronger predictor of success than IQ, talent, or social advantage. So failure is temporary. Quitting, it's permanent. Remember Walt Disney? He was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination. Of course, before he created a multi-billion-dollar empire. So he just had to keep going. The question I think we probably got to ask ourselves is, what's worth missing 9,000 shots for? Right? What is worth possibly failing over and over and over again? But if we use it for feedback, we'll tweak things, we'll apply different things, we'll adjust, we'll learn the lessons, and then we'll specifically ask, all right, why didn't that work? What should I change so that we keep moving in the right direction? Listen, failure isn't a verdict. It is the curriculum of the class. And the faster that we learn this lesson, the faster you get to move up to the next class. You get to graduate. You get to get closer to your dream and seeing the life that you want to live. So make sure that you take these steps to reframe failure as just simply feedback. And if you'll apply those, they'll change your life. Let me tell you another story that I think will hopefully illustrate these 4 steps. James Dyson was an inventor, and most of us probably know by now the Dyson vacuum cleaner. Now, you may have heard that inventors failing a few times before they succeed, that's pretty standard. But James Dyson took it to a whole new level. Imagine obsessively tweaking and testing 5,127 different prototypes. Every single one of these failing in some way for 5 straight years. That's the path Dyson took to invent his first bagless vacuum, the G-Force. So let me break it down for you. Step 1, name it for what it is. Dyson didn't label his failures as disasters. They were simply versions, data points guiding him closer to the solution. Step 2, he extracted the lessons. He didn't throw prototypes away, I'm sure, without learning from them. Each one revealed what wasn't working, whether it was airflow design, suction loss, or material weakness. He extracted the lesson. Then he went into step 3, apply and adjust, where with each lesson he meticulously adjusted one variable at a time. Dimensions, materials, airflow mechanics, keeping his progression measured and purposeful. And then, of course, step 4, as we know, he kept shooting. After the 5,127 attempts and years of pressure, rejection, ridicule, he finally launched his vacuum cleaner. So James Dyson's journey doesn't follow a straight line. It was rejection after rejection, version after version, until he finally gets it right. The lesson? Every failure is part of the curriculum. Each one brings you one step closer to the breakthrough if you reframe it as feedback. And if Dyson could push through 5,127 attempts for a vacuum cleaner, how many misses, how many attempts are you willing to endure for the thing that you were born to do, for the dream that you've been dreaming about? Let us reframe failure as feedback for success. Well, hey, that's the end of part 4 of excuses that are probably killing our dreams. If that inspired you in any way, share it, like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you can. And just remember this: stay focused, stay disciplined, and keep sharpening.